Welcome back to Project-Based Learning, connecting classrooms to the real world. Lesson 6 is on project-based learning and Bloom's taxonomy. If you're like me, you probably might expect that this will be somewhat of a dry, boring lesson, but it actually, as I prepared this lesson, it became my favorite, the most exciting one yet. Hope you find it the same. So, what is Bloom's taxonomy? We as educators hear about it a lot in PD. We know it's related to higher order thinking and questions and objectives. But who is Bloom? What is a taxonomy? What's the big deal about Bloom's taxonomy? And what does Bloom's taxonomy have to do with project-based learning? All of these questions will be addressed in this lesson. So Benjamin Bloom lived from 1913 to 1999. He was an American psychologist in education. He made contributions to the classification of educational objectives. He actually led a team in working on classifying educational objectives, and he contributed to the theory of mastery learning, another interesting topic that we don't have time to cover. He directed a research team to investigate the development of exceptional talent, and that again is another very interesting study that he conducted. So he studied at Penn State and the University of Chicago, and he worked for the American Educational Research Association, whose mission is to advance knowledge about education and promote the use of research for the betterment of education and the public good. So we are still benefiting from some of his research. He's the author of several books, or the chief editor of some of these books. We are most familiar with the taxonomy of educational objectives, but I was very fascinated looking into some of his other books, Developing Talent in Young People, On All Our Children Learning, Mastery Learning, and Human Characteristics and School Learning. So for your reading list, you might want to read those sometime by the pool. So what is a taxonomy? A taxonomy is the science or technique of classification, or in this lesson, the second definition is the most pertinent. It's the classification into ordered categories. It also can be a biology term. It's a French word. So Bloom's original taxonomy included 6 levels, from knowledge as the most basic level all the way up to evaluation. We might know it to be a list of verbs, objectives, things students should be able to do, all the way from knowing in a basic way all the way to creating, the most advanced. But many of us, as teachers, never hear that Bloom's taxonomy has 3 domains. And this is where I got very excited. He stated that there are 3 domains to learning: the cognitive, the affective, and the psychomotor. The cognitive is the only one we always hear about. I guess this is going to be without music now, sorry. We always hear about knowledge, about comprehending, applying, and analyzing, synthesizing, evaluating. But we never hear, it seems, about the other 2 domains, the affective, which is a matter of the attitude of a learner, the interest of a learner, the feelings of a learner. And we never hear about the psychomotor domain. Now, Bloom himself and his team did not address the levels of the psychomotor domain, but he did state that the psychomotor domain is equally as important, that for an effective education, the 3 domains must be balanced in education. These levels of the psychomotor domain were developed later by other educational psychologists. So Bloom and his committee of educators that devised the taxonomy stated that a goal of the taxonomy was to motivate educators to focus on all 3 domains, creating a more holistic form of education. So I'm not sure what happened, why we only get the cognitive domain when all 3 were important, and he stressed that the 3 need to be balanced. So Bloom believed in the whole child learning. The brain has an affective system, it has a motor system, and it has its memory, the cognitive area. But the three areas are all important in the learning process. So here are a few diagrams. Like Aristotle, he believed educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. In 1956 is when the cognitive domain was defined thoroughly, as well as the affective domain. But in 2001, the cognitive domain was rearranged a bit to match the 21st century, and create became the highest order of cognitive demand. So each domain is like a staircase. Since we're not as familiar with the affective domain, you might want to pause this and read the different areas. And in the digital era, Bloom was at the end of the industrial age, but then we began the information age, and there was the digital era, or we're in it, and many scientists and educational psychologists have also classified the digital demands to be also in according to Bloom's taxonomy. So this is a little extension. So what does Bloom's taxonomy have to do with project-based learning? Project-based learning covers all three domains of learning: the cognitive, the affective, and the psychomotor. In project-based learning, the cognitive objectives cover every level, from remembering and recognizing, all the way to comprehending, analyzing, applying, evaluating, and creating. All of the levels are used in project-based learning. Not only so, but the interest of every child is involved. The passion for learning is unleashed. The attitudes are affected. Not only so, but students they practice the skills that are so necessary for their future and even for their present. So, if nothing else in this lesson, I hope you would be very clear that Bloom's taxonomy of learning is not just about creating or evaluating, which is what he thought was the highest. It's not just about the cognitive area, but it's about the whole child, all three areas: the psychomotor, the cognitive, and the affective. We have to care for the whole child. Through project-based learning, students can reach the highest peak of all the domains of learning. They can gain those 21st century skills. They can master the content through all of the 8 steps or 8 elements that we will be covering in the next unit. I'd like to leave you with a quote from Benjamin Bloom. Education must be increasingly concerned about the fullest development of all children and youth, and it will be the responsibility of the schools to seek learning conditions which will enable each individual to reach the highest level of learning possible. And this highest level of learning clearly involves all 3 domains, and all 3 domains are very much mastered through project-based learning. Thank you.